Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I'm Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the live stream I do multiple times a week where we talk about jobs, job search, careers, the economy, resumes, job interviews, hiring, networking, all that kind of stuff, careers, you name it, anything to do with making money, either as an employee or otherwise. That's what we talk about here, including the gritty realities of job search, not the theory about how it's supposed to work, but how it actually ends up working in the real world, warts and all. Unprofessionalism, idiot recruiters, all that kind of stuff. That's what we talk about here. So if you're seeing my beautiful face, you should see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat if you're a subscriber to my channel. And let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and what's up with you, and I will do my best to help you out. This episode of Honest HR Nitrous is called Why You're Not Getting Hired and How to Fix It Fast. So we're going to talk about that. But this is primarily a Q&A. So I see there's 7 people here. Thank you for joining me. You guys are awesome. And Mr. N. Faka is here, if I'm saying that right. Is that the correct pronunciation of your name? I'm sure it's not. But it's okay, because I'm a professional. I'm a professional bastardizer of people's names the world over. That's what I do, and damn proud of it. If people aren't pissed off after they hear me say their name, then my job hasn't been done. So Mr. N.P. Faka says, edit 7. Right on. Right on. That's a great start. So yeah. Get in the chat. Let me know what your questions are, what your comments are, what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and I will do my best to answer your questions. And especially if they're about how to get hired or job interviews or resumes or any of that stuff. I mean, I'm a big advocate for evangelizing about the hidden job market. You know, all the jobs you see that are posted on the internet, that's 20% of the jobs that are actually out there. The other 80% exist, and you can get them, but you can't discover them through an internet job search. You know, that's the thing. That's what they don't teach you in school, which I'm surprised at. You know, don't take my word for this. If this is new and you seem skeptical of it, go do your own independent research. You'll see that that's true. You know, I welcome it. Pranay is here. Says, hi, Bill. Is it okay to change or add the title of your past role to the role you're applying for? The responsibilities and experience are the same, but the titles are always different in every company. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's no absolute right or wrong for these things. The only question is how it's going to be perceived. Okay. And for me, I personally don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't judge anyone for doing that. I think that's perfectly fine, because at the end of the day, you can do the job and you have done the job. So it's not really a misrepresentation. You know, if they put the screws to you, you know, in an interview or something, you can always say, well, technically, officially, my job title was this, but the role was this, you know, the terminology that they're familiar with, because that's what I did, you know. You know what I mean? I don't see any problem, any ethical issues in doing that whatsoever, you know. In the same way that some companies describe the same thing as another company, but they use different terms to describe it, right? That's a very common thing. If you look at job postings, you see that all the time, right? You know, one company says we're looking for someone with supervisory experience. Another employer says we're looking for someone with frontline management experience. It's the same thing, right? It's just that the lingo is different. The terminology is different. So, you know, that's one of the things that everyone and their brother recommends that you do when you write your resume. If you're applying for a job that says we're looking for someone with frontline manager experience, and on your resume it reads that you've got 10 years with supervisory experience, you would want to change the term supervisor to frontline manager, because then it lines up with their job requirements. Because you have the job requirements, it's just that they're calling them by a different name, right? And if you don't do this, chances are excuse me, chances are your resume will not pass the initial filter if it's in an ATS system, or even if a recruiter looks at it, because a lot of recruiters, they don't have any knowledge or training on the technicalities of the jobs they're hiring for, so they wouldn't know that frontline manager means supervisor or vice versa. You know what I mean? To them, hey, it's a different word, so it's probably a different thing. They don't know, right? You have to make it easy for them. You have to help them along, shall we say. So I wouldn't have an issue with that, Pranay. Get in the chat. Let me know what you're struggling with, what you're dealing with. This thrives on getting questions from you guys. I don't have really an agenda to talk about, okay? If you're not getting hired, if you're in the middle of a job search and it's not going very well, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what the problems are, what you can do about it, what alternatives there are. Pranay says, what about background checks? In India here, it's quite common they ask for previous appointment, a letter, and the role. There was mentioned the original role, but we changed the title for their... Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to like how that would work in India. I'm not in India myself, so you might want to get some information from someone in India who understands how that works there. Right? What would be useful is if you could get a copy of a background check, like a template or an example from someone you don't know that's maybe on the internet, and you could see the format. So does it give the official job title, or does it just say that you were employed at that organization? These are the dates, right? Jennifer Grimm says, legit. Jennifer is legit. It's very important. I need to put that after the end of my name, just so people know. Says, thank you so much for your graciousness in sharing your talents, gifts, and insight with extensive experience. You are greatly appreciated. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. That's very gracious of you to say so, and I do appreciate that. It's always nice hearing that you're awesome, so thank you very much. I try to do my best. If you have a question, let me know, and I will do my best to steer you in the right direction, shall we say. And yes, this is ginger ale, not beer, like someone theorized a couple of live streams ago. Yeah, if you are playing this game, and this is the thing that kind of bugs me, is that a lot of people today, especially young people, in my opinion, they're not given very accurate training or information about how people get jobs. And indeed, more than that, the idea that, not everybody works as an employee. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of alternatives out there. The two big options for me, the big families of options, are people that start their own business, right? And then other people that do investing. It's all kind of elements of the same thing, really. But, there's other alternatives to make money other than working as an employee. Certainly you can work as an employee. A lot of people do, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing, certainly earlier on in your career, to be on the inside of, a business unit of some kind that's doing something, seeing how it works, getting to know that industry from the inside. That's great. But there's a lot of other alternatives. And depending on your situation, others might make more sense than working as an employee, And on this channel, I try and talk to those. At least I talk to the entrepreneurial side of things. I talk about every Monday, I've got a live stream called Side Hustle Ideas where we talk about the entrepreneurship. Pranay says, I'm struggling to find a job, and every time I tailor a resume, and I'm so confused right now, I have tons of resume templates, different formats, different styles. I'm still unable to land a call. Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, so Pranay. So listen, I just want to put a disclaimer on this that, if you're in India, I'm not in India, so there could be idiosyncrasies to do with India that I'm not aware of, okay? I've dealt with a lot of people from India, but that doesn't mean that I know everything, and I certainly don't. But this is what I would say, okay? First of all, the first decision people make is, should I keep my resume the same and just fire that out to all these different posted jobs? Or should I tailor my resume? Absolutely, you should tailor your resume, because even though you could do a greater volume of job applications if you just kept your resume standard, always kept it the same, it won't be nearly as effective as if you tailored your resume for every job. Now, up until recently, tailoring your resume was very labor intensive. So if you could apply for 100 jobs in a day just by firing out the same resume document to everywhere, you could do 100 in a day. If you were to tailor your resume, you're probably limited to about 3, something like that. You could apply for 3 jobs in a day, something like that, right? Because it's very labor intensive. And what you would do is you would make sure that the keywords match up for what they're looking for, like what the requirements are that they're looking for. You'd want to make sure those are featured very prominently in your resume. A great thing to do is to have bullet points kind of at the top of your resume that highlight the fact that you have the things that they said they were looking for in the job posting under the requirements section. You say, I have this education, I have this experience, I have these skills, right? So bam, 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 it grabs somebody's eye if it's a human looking at it, okay? Then you want to make sure that the way they describe something is the way you describe it. We were talking about that earlier. So you're using the same lingo. So if they say, what was it? I need 5 years supervisory experience. You don't tell them, oh, I've got 5 years line management experience. It's like, no. Or employee frontline management experience. Like, no. That's the same thing as supervisory experience, but you need to use the same terms they do. Because if this goes in to an ATS system, an applicant tracking system, you send your application in and a computer reads it and starts doing the initial filtering, of like yay or nay, right, to all these applicants, right? It's going to be looking for usually keywords, like actual words. So they'll look for the word supervisor or supervisory, And if it doesn't see that word, it rejects your application as, oh, you're not qualified, right? Okay, so you have to use the same lingo. Now, this is why you would tailor your resume. So you make sure that you're speaking directly to all the things that they said that they were looking for, right? Even if you technically don't have the requirement. Let's say they are looking for 5 years of supervisory experience. You don't have 5 years of supervisory experience. You maybe have 2, right? Okay. So maybe on your resume you say, I have supervisory experience. You don't put a number, or something like that, right? It's not a lie, And if they're just looking for the word supervisory, right? Now, what's the worst that could happen? They pick you to go to an interview. You go down to an interview and they say, how many years of supervisory experience do you have, right? And you say, well, here's the deal. I have 2 years of supervisory experience outright, but, and this is where you can make a case for yourself. I've worked side by side with people that have 20 years supervisory experience. I held my own with them, this kind of thing. I've also done a lot of tutoring. So in that capacity, that's technically a supervisor. I was responsible for these people, so if you add that on, I have like maybe 6 overall or something like that. Or I only have maybe 4, right? But let's say they like you, right? You have great social skills. You're very charismatic. You know what to say. You're well rehearsed. You're very professional. They might say, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. It wasn't an absolute requirement that you had 5 years experience after all. It was a nice to have. As long as you've been a supervisor, you know how it's done. That's fine. Right? So like you use techniques like that to get past the filters and stuff and then into the role, right? And then today, in the past you would be tailoring your applications and your resumes manually, right? Now you can use AI. So something like ChatGPT is an incredible tool, right? What you do is you sort of open a free prompt for ChatGPT. You go to chatgpt.com, you open the prompt, and you say, like, here's my resume, and you give it the text of your resume, right? And then you say, here is the job I want to apply to, and you paste the text of the job posting, right? Now it remembers both of these, right? And then you can say something like, rewrite my resume so that it is as close of a match as possible to apply for this job that will give me the highest chances of being called in for an interview. And then what it will do is it'll think about it and it'll spit out like, okay, here's a new version of your resume. It took your old resume, all the stuff that was on it, and it rewrote some of it, it reordered some things, and it eliminated some things, and it overemphasized or up to the emphasis on certain other things, right? And changed the lingo, changed the wording to match with, what they had. And you could say, I want, as much as possible keyword matching with the job description and the requirements. So you give it these manual instructions and it will rewrite your resume for you. And then you take that text, it says, here's your new resume. You say copy, paste, and you paste that into your resume. It's a good idea just to read it and, give it a once over proofread before you send it off, right? But that can shave off so much time of this process that you would have had to do before, right? It'll be so useful that that's what a lot of people are doing. And that's what I recommend. So if you are not using AI to customize your resumes, you can do the same thing with cover letters, same thing, right? You need to start doing it. You need to investigate these tools. They're free. They're tremendously powerful, right? And they're there waiting for you. And if you don't use them, all your competitors, other applicants will, right? They are using them. So to not be left behind, you need to use this stuff, okay? That way you could apply for more than 3 jobs in a day with custom resumes. You could apply to 80, if you wanted to, right? If you really know what you're doing. So start using these tools and then you'll get better at it. You'll have your little prompt, that says exactly the instruction you want. Bam, 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 there's your tailored resume. Here we go, into a document. Away goes your application. So if you're playing the game of posted jobs, that's how I'd recommend. So Pranay, so if that makes any sense, that's what I'd recommend. Okay, so you don't have to worry about multiple templates and all this kind of stuff. Just have a master version of your resume that you give ChatGPT or whatever chatbot you're using, and that's all the material it has to draw from, and then it will selectively draw from it things that match for this job you're applying for, right? Okay. Guido says, if you are tech savvy, I recommend having a resume with macros. Like in LaTeX, you can switch on or off different skills you have depending on the job description. Takes seconds. Yeah, I suppose you can, but what the method that I just spent 5 minutes or 10 minutes talking about is far superior, right? It's not about turning on skills and things. It's about rephrasing it, using their lingo, and displaying the order in the order of what they care about. So if a human looks at your resume, if it gets past the initial ATS filter, which hopefully it should, it gets to a human. The human looks at it. They've got only a couple of seconds to just see if this makes any sense to pursue. But if they see bam, 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 all the stuff that they were hoping for right there, right at the top, prominently, right? That's okay, this person's a contender, right? So that's what I'd recommend. Get in the chat. Let me know your questions. Sorry, I spent about at least 5 minutes on just one last question, but that's the method that everyone and their brother is recommending, and I am too, because that's the smart way of doing it. It allows you the best of both worlds. You can create a custom application that gets past ATS systems, that gives recruiters what they're looking for, okay? But it doesn't require you to spend a huge amount of time manually creating a new version of your resume. It's just very, very quick. You take a lot of the thinking out of it. You just let ChatGPT do all the heavy lifting for you. All you need to do is the right commands for ChatGPT, and then away you go, Pretty simple. You can apply for, as I said, like 80 jobs in a day, each with a customized resume and cover letter by doing this technique. It's not a very original technique. Everybody's using this, right? But if you're not using it yet, that's why you need to check this out, okay? Because your competitors are. Pranay says, most of the company have set certain values nowadays, and they're mostly looking for a cultural fit apart from skill set. Yeah, maybe. Well, it's not nowadays. They always had those. Yeah, maybe your experience matches, but you don't resonate with the values. Values are, I hate that term. It's just total BS, you know? What they're trying to say is it's a fit for the culture. Culture, what that word means is it's the way things are done here. That's what culture is, right? Are you a fit for the company's culture? That's the way we do things here, right? That can do with how you dress, how you speak to people, right? Do you speak to each other like you're in a bank, very polite, very dignified, or do you speak to each other like you're on a construction site? You know, very offensive, very crude. You usually yell it. You slam your fist down as you say it, you know, right? How do they do things there, right? It's a cultural fit, right? They're looking for people that are like some places are looking for people that are extremely friendly, that don't have confrontations with other people, right? They don't want any confrontations between employees. Another place you go, it's the total opposite. Everybody's constantly having a confrontation with everyone else, right? That's just how they operate. You know, so are you a fit is the question. Now, you don't know if you're a fit because you don't know what the culture is for this place you're interviewing for. You know, all you know is they brought you into a room to do a job interview, and you've met two people. You've met a recruiter, and if you get the job, you'll never see the recruiter again, and the hiring manager will probably be your boss. There they are, sitting there in the room. You've never spoken to them. You've never interacted with them. You never worked with them. So it's hard for you to gauge what the culture is, right? Now, sometimes in an industry, all the employers kind of behave similarly, you know, because they're in the same industry. But other times we don't see that. We see the opposite of that. There's like different approaches to it. Two competitors, like that's when I first came out of school, like, you know, about 250 years ago, when I went into the railroad, which was the first industry I worked in, there were two big rival companies, and they had a completely polar opposite approach. One company hired a lot of young people who had been from university. The other company hired a lot of old people that had no schooling beyond high school. They just had like a lot of experience working on site. So you couldn't have gotten a more different like culture clash from these two companies. And I went from one to the other. I first worked at one and then I worked at the other, you know? You know what I mean? So like that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone who matches. Now, before we get into it, I just want to go on a very, very quick rant and just say, this pisses me off because it's like everybody talks about diversity and like, you know, not just the political correct diversity, but diversity of skill sets, diversity of opinions, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of education, diversity of, sort of core skill, core competencies, things like this. And it's a good thing, and it helps, and it's been shown to make businesses more profitable, right? The catch is that you got to make those people work together. Not everyone can. But we talk about diversity, yet the first thing they subject you to is this kind of crap, where they say, you know, you have to fit the culture. And anything else they say like this is code for you have to fit the culture. Like what did Pranay say? You know, maybe your experience matches, but you don't resonate with the values. It's like, what does that actually mean? That means you're different from us, right? You maybe speak different. You have different expectations. You have a different work style, different communication style. You know, that's obfuscation of what they really mean. That's why I don't like that word values when it's used in this context, because that's what they're really referring to. It's also a very convenient excuse to reject you on anything. They can just say, well, you know, I'm sorry, you didn't make the cut. And you say, oh, why is that? and they say, oh, well, you didn't resonate with our values. And they can say that to anything and obfuscate any reason why they didn't hire you. It's just really annoying. Okay? So nowadays, you need everything that you've always needed in the past. You need the technical skills, and that comes from a combination of education and training and experience, right? There's going to be a mix of, education and training on one hand and then experience on the other. There's going to be a mix that they require. And you need so much more. You need all the soft skills, right? And that's what job interviews are really about. They're not about your technical qualifications. They are about your soft skills. That's the entire purpose of interviews. It always has been. And it is now. You see, the only people they select to come in for interviews are people that on paper look fully qualified, right? So every candidate that they call in for, that they do an interview with, on paper is fully qualified. The only real question there is, have they lied about their qualifications? That's the only thing you have to really do there, is just ask them a couple of questions just to see if they know what they're talking about, right? But on paper, they're fully qualified, assuming that everything checks out. They haven't put stuff on their resume that isn't true. They're fully qualified. So you're interviewing with 6 to 8 fully qualified candidates. They're all qualified. They each could do the job, right, if they were given it. The question now is, who do you want to work with? Right? That's the question that job interviews are designed to answer. Which of these people would you rather work with? Right? And that's what you compete on when you're doing a job interview with the other candidates, right? So if one person is super friendly and they look very professional and they're a pleasure to deal with, they seem to know their stuff, and you have a very pleasant conversation with them, and you could see, if you had to work with that person every day, all day long, you'd be fine with it. They make you feel pretty good. And when the interview's over, they leave, and you think, hey, that went by very quickly. I actually really enjoyed talking to that person. I would love to talk to that person for more. It's a shame that the interview, ran out of time. I would have loved to continue that. Another candidate, you interview that candidate and it does not go well. It's awkward. You feel uncomfortable. It's very hard to get information out of them. Either they don't know how to speak properly, or they misinterpret your question, or maybe they have a bad attitude. Maybe they keep getting offended, or they get upset. They look angry, in the interview, or they look really uncomfortable. It's like they're qualified technically, but do you want to work with that person? Probably not. Right? So this is what job interviews are about. So when you go down to a job interview, if you're friendly, if you're someone they would want to work with, if you're very easygoing, they say, can you do this? And they say, sure. As opposed to another candidate, they say, can you do this? And they say, well, I don't know. I'd have to check into that to see if we can, or if I'm allowed to do that first, or I'm going to need you to give me all this information first, and then I'll see if I can do it. It's like, no, I don't want to work with that person, right? So these are the things that they need in job interviews. This is what you compete on, right? Don't be fooled into thinking it's about your technical skills, because it isn't. Sure, they may ask you questions based on your technical skills and your experience and your education, but that's not what really the interview is about, right? So that's what you're up against. So Pranay, you're saying, do certifications matter? Now listen, if they gave you an interview, whatever you provided them on your resume or on your application or in your cover letter is good, right? It shows that they feel that on paper you're technically qualified, right? That's why when you go into the interview, if they ever tell you you're overqualified, it's like, that's stupid, because the fact that you're here signals that you are not overqualified. You are perfectly qualified for this job. You have everything you need. Because the obvious question is, if you come down to an interview and they say well, you're clearly unqualified for this, your response would be, well, then why the hell did you bring me in? You can see that. You can see in my application, apparently I don't measure up to what you're wanting. Why the hell did you call me down here then? If, you're just ending this without even sort of giving it a chance. This is a colossal waste of your time as well as mine, So, not that you would say that, but when they say stuff like that to you in an interview, it's false. You know that, like, I'm clearly not underqualified or overqualified because I'm here. What'd you bring me in for? You guys on crack? Okay, so do certifications matter? That's a very specific question about your industry in India, so I can't answer that. If they're not, are they asking for them? If presumably they're asking for them and you have them and they bring you in for an interview, then you seem to have given them what they want. Now, here's how you get an answer to that question. If it's really important to you, Pranay, here's how you get an answer, okay? Go learn how to get an informational interview. And you can use LinkedIn to do this, right? So do a search, okay? A people search on LinkedIn, confine it to your hometown or wherever you're looking for a job, and then enter in the position of the role that you're aspiring to have. So if you want to get hired as a supervisor in the nursing industry or something, do a search on LinkedIn for, supervisor nursing or something like that in your hometown. And then or like the actual job title, whatever it may be. And then the search results, if it's a people search, will be individuals that are either currently in that job or have been in that job previously. Okay? And then reach out to them. Here are the people that have all worked in that role. Now, the first thing you can do is you can look at their profile. So do they have certifications? And if they do, what certifications do they have? If every single person that's in that role that has that job title has these 7 certifications, that's telling you something. Those 7 certifications are probably what you need to get that role. If some people have 10 certifications and some people have no certifications, and you're like looking at all these people, then that suggests that certifications aren't absolutely essential, right? So that's how you can get answers to these type of questions, very specific, industry-specific questions, by doing those kinds of searches on LinkedIn. Now, I hate having to explain this. I think LinkedIn, they require a premium account for you to do these kinds of unlimited searches, but they also have like a sign up for free, like 1 month free of premium thing. So what you could do is you could sign up for the free month and then cancel before the end of the month so they don't charge you anything. And then you could use the premium search where you can do these kind of things for free, right? So check into that. But that's how you get answers to these kinds of questions. Okay. Hello to Deborah. Deborah's here. Deborah's got some pretty neat glasses too, I can see. Guido says, some firms like Amazon still filter a lot of technical side during the interview process, which is often multiple steps to actual. Yeah, that's because their way of selecting people for interviews is not very good, right? Now that could be because like in certain industries, like we talked about the IT industry on my last live stream, there aren't a lot of standardized qualifications for the latest stuff, right? So for example, if they're hiring people based on their skills writing like AI apps or applications or routines or whatever, there's, to my knowledge, I mean, I'm not in IT, but to my knowledge, there's not a lot of certifications that are like sort of the gold standard of like, if you've got this certification, it means you can do that work. It's more of like the Wild West. Some people can just do it. Other people can't because they can do it because they've learned it themselves and they've worked on it and they practiced it. And so they have skills, you know? So the problem is like if Amazon is trying to hire somebody with skills in designing AI, you know, I don't know, software, like they're writing code to do with AI stuff, there are no technical skills or technical certifications that you can say, I got this, therefore I know it all, right? You know, so they have to do a lot of that stuff manually, right? That's why it's still better to talk to the hiring manager, because if you can talk shop with the hiring manager, regardless of a job, outside of the whole job interview hierarchy, you do a direct outreach to the company, whether or not they've posted a job or not, and say, I would like to work for you guys. You sit down with the hiring manager, you have like a coffee, and you talk AI coding, And after a while, the hiring manager will go, well, you clearly know your stuff just by the questions you're asking and what you're saying to me. I can tell you know how to do this stuff, So if we are looking for someone, if ever we will be looking for someone like that can write code for this, it's like, you're someone I'd want to hire. Besides, I've already met you. And you've signaled how enthusiastic you are about working here because you reached out to me. And I got a sample of how professional you are, how great your communication skills are, your initiative, and your enthusiasm. That's all been demonstrated to me already. So you're at the top of the pile if we have something. And, some companies have it. Some companies have something right now. Some others don't, But, that opens a lot of doors doing that kind of thing. Cool. Okay, so get in the chat. Let me know if you have questions about hiring and stuff. Last thing I want to do is argue with people about the IT industry. I'm not in IT. I had an IT company 25 years ago, and I've been out of that game since then. So it's past history. The IT landscape today is quite a bit different from what it was when I was doing it. Someone says, thank you for your videos and help. I had the good news today. I got hired. Well, congratulations. I can't read your name because it's all what I believe is Chinese characters, but it was Mandarin or something. But that's great. That's great. You obviously crushed it. You obviously did a fantastic job. So you should feel very good about yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Way to go. Do one of these. Do that, right? As I bump my mic. Nah, this is not staying up. I got problems with this. I got one of those arms, that holds the microphone, and it's extended quite far, but it can't hold up this heavy microphone, so I have to rest it on some foam. Anyway, there are 33 people here. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you are getting something out of this, doing some self-improvement. If you are looking to go deep with me and get my sort of advice on how to get a job from beginning to end, check out that course, my Get Hired course. There's a link in the description box below. That's where all of my advice, all of my knowledge is all in one place, including how to do networking and direct outreach, especially if you're an introvert like myself, or you're a technical person like myself. You're not an extrovert, you're not a people person, but it's like you want to tap the hidden job market. You want to be able to put yourself out for all these opportunities that are not posted. 80% of jobs are not posted. The reason they're not posted is because they don't need to post them, because they're great jobs, and every time the manager mentions it, even to their own coworkers, the coworkers are coming back the next day and saying, hey, I've got a brother or a friend or a former coworker that would be perfect for this. Shall I tell them to send you their resume and come in for an interview? Right? They're not having any problems finding people to fill those roles, so they don't go through the song and dance of posting a job. Posting a job is actually quite expensive and time consuming. People try and avoid it. I had to post jobs when I was a manager. I worked with recruiters, and sometimes I just did it myself. It was kind of whether it made sense to get the recruiting company to come in, the HR company to do it for you, or you did it yourself. In the end, it was about this. And I remember asking a lot of other general managers at the time, what do you do? Do you get, an outside HR company to do it for you, or do you do it yourself? And the consensus came back saying technically it's less work if you get them to do it, but then you have to work with them and write job descriptions and all this stuff. It's a lot harder. And the quality of the results that you get with them isn't any greater than what you could achieve on your own. So that's the advice I got when I first became a general manager. And I tried both. I worked with HR firms and I also did stuff myself. And yeah, it was about the same. I'm sure nobody cares about that, but there you go. Hemanth, ready? Is that how you say that? Hemanth says, I have an upcoming meeting with my manager regarding the performance. So like your job performance. And I believe I did very well. How do I ask for a pay raise? This is my first job. Please guide me. That's a tricky subject because at the end of the day, it's like you can ask, you can say anything you want, but the only thing that seems to have any bearing on them actually giving you a pay raise is the altruism of your manager themselves, right? As a person, do they like you? Do they feel, empathetic for you, and they feel you're being honest and they feel you deserve it, so they'll actually push to get you more money. That's the only thing that really can get you a raise. The reality is that, technically, the reality is that you're already working for them for this amount of money, right? So what you're doing is you're saying, I feel I should get this much money, right? The problem is that hiring managers, if you've ever supervised employees, you know that something like 90% of all employees believe they're underpaid, right? They believe they deserve more money. Something like 90%. The good ones believe they deserve more money. The bad ones believe they deserve more money. All the people in the middle believe they deserve more money, right? And the other thing you hear a lot as a manager is you hear, well, I think I deserve more money, and if you don't give it to me, then I'll probably leave, right? That's the other thing you hear a lot. And what managers have learned, if you've been a people manager for a couple of years, you learn that 90% of the time or something, that's an empty threat. Because if you come back to them and say, look, I'm sorry, it's just not in the budget. It's not that I won't give you a raise. It's that I can't. I would if I could. I think you deserve it, but unfortunately, I don't have the money. I don't have the authority to. We're already maxed out on our budget as it is. So sorry. I really do appreciate you. I hope you stay around, right? And then that the employee, in 90% of cases or more, they won't leave. It was an empty threat, right? You know what I mean? Right? So that's kind of what we encounter, right? So the only way I think it works is there's no actual technical thing that can force the hand of the manager to give you more money. There's just no way. Even if you threaten to leave, they see through that. They know that 90% of the time it's a bluff. People don't actually leave. The only thing I've observed, other than the altruism thing, is when you have a truly, really good employee that you don't want to lose, and they say, I'm being paid this, I would like this. And you say the default thing, I'm sorry, I'd like to, but I can't, right? And they say, okay, well, I understand, but just so you know, I am in demand and I have offers with other companies and stuff. So here's my last day. Here's my notice, right? And you go, oh, okay. Okay, no problem. So what I've observed is that then you let the employee work through the notice, and then the last day comes and goes, and then they don't come into work for the first day. And then the boss calls them at home and says, okay, come on back. You got your money. They just wanted to see that the threat was real, right? That's the only other way I've seen to get a pay raise, right? And so the best thing for you is, if you feel you're doing really well, okay, and I'm sure you are, maybe you're an amazing employee, it's if that's true, okay, if that's true, then you should be in demand. Okay, right? You follow the logic. So go out and see if you can get a couple of other job offers. Go and apply for jobs. Even though you've got a good job here that you're fine with, see what else is out there. You might get a lot more than just the little raise that you're looking for. You're making this, you want to make this. Maybe if you get another job, their starting pay starts here. You know what I'm saying? So see what else is out there. Get another offer in your hand, and then go back to your boss. Whenever that occurs, go back to your boss. I know you're doing the whole performance review thing now, but go back to your boss when you get that other offer in hand and say, listen, I've worked here for a while. I do good work, right? Well, just so you know, I feel like I really should get more money to make, my compensation in line with what the industry at large is paying. So are you able to give me a raise to this much, And then see what they say. You could even say, I've got another offer from another company. Can you match it? They're going to pay me this, Can you match it? Because if your boss could pay you this, that would be preferable to even leaving and going somewhere else. You're jumping into an unknown situation. Here, you know what you're getting. You like it here. If they could pay you the same amount of money, whatever that was, this much, you take it, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, that would be the best way of doing it. Go and get some alternatives. And then it's not a bluff. And then no matter what anybody says, at the end of the day, you're going to be making this much, right? Whether you stay here or whether you go to take the new job, that's what you're going to be making. So that's the best way to do it. The problem is people don't like hearing that because it involves having to do some work, right? But it is well worth your while to see what is out there and see what your value truly is. And then you'll be more informed in knowing what to ask for or where to go, right? It never pays to just stay in one place and just be ignorant of like everything that's going around. You could end up being exploited like that. Turns out you're really, really knowledgeable, you're really, really educated, and the reality was that you could be making double what you're making now, but you wouldn't know that because you haven't tried to get another job, right? I discovered this myself, incidentally. The first job that I got, my first career job, I took a job with a blue chip company, and I found after a year and a half that their big competitor, which was another blue chip company, they were paying like literally double the amount of compensation for the same job, and they were across town in my hometown. Now, if I hadn't looked, I wouldn't have discovered that. I ended up moving from one company to the other. What I did is I talked to my boss before I left. I said, like, I suspect that, I'm worth more than what you're paying me, more than this. I'd like this. Can you give me a raise, which would be more in line with, I don't know, what the market, what this industry pays. And I was told, no, we've done our homework and, we pay you exactly what you're worth. It said, okay, no, absolutely no problem. I understand. Here's my notice. Goodbye. And I went to the, essentially, figuratively across the street to make essentially double for doing the same job. Right? It always pays to look around. So hopefully that long rambling answer helped you, because that's kind of the forces that are at play with this kind of stuff, right? When you ask for something, while simultaneously you have no power, the only power you have is to leave if they say no. Now, is that an empty threat? Is that an actual option for you? If you don't have any alternatives, you probably are not going to leave, right? The solution is to get alternatives, and then you have some negotiating power. If these people won't pay you what you're worth, fine, you leave, you go to a place that will, because you have that option, right? So hopefully that helps. Sword Fighter says, how would you navigate the you can't get this job without experience, but you need experience to get the job? I've done several videos on that, actually. You need to watch them. I highly recommend that you do that. I have videos called How to Get a Job Without Experience, or with no experience. And there's several ways. So go watch those videos. Sorry to tell you that, but you'll get a much better experience than what I could just rattle off here. Okay? There's many ways you could do this. You could get First of all, a lot of the principles are similar to what I went into about 10 minutes ago here on this live stream, talking about how job interviews are really about soft skills, right? And a huge thing that underscores who they hire derives from trust. Like, I trust that this person is actually all they say they are, right? Because think about it, when you hire a stranger, you're basically hiring them with expectations. Like, I believe that they're telling the truth when they say they know how to do this. And from what I've seen on their resume or what they've said in an interview, I believe that they are good at managing this or that, or doing this particular task, or, whatever it is, leading a group, driving a forklift, whatever it is, right? I'm just believe that, they can do it, right? So, this is why people tend to hire people through networking way before they take strangers. You know what I'm saying? Because if you know someone, like you've worked with them before or you've met them before, whatever, when there wasn't a job that was being discussed, you know more, you trust more of what you're getting, right? This person is who I think they are, right? That kind of thing. So, getting a job without experience is like, what you do is, if you don't have experience or career experience, you can make up for it with several other things, right? One of them is reaching out, right? Showing your initiative. It's like volunteering. Volunteering is great because it signals what a person is actually interested in, right? If you're not being paid to do something, but you do it voluntarily, that signals that you're actually genuinely enthusiastic about doing that kind of work, right? That's what volunteering signals, right? So by the same principle, when you do direct outreach to an employer, the employer hasn't posted a job, but you find that there's an employer that could hire you, and maybe they're like 6 blocks away from your home, right? So it might make sense to reach out to them. And if you could convey the message to the person that would hire someone like you, the hiring manager, right, the boss of people like you, if you could convey the message saying to them, hey, I'm here and I'm great at solving this problem, and if ever you're looking for someone who can do that, let me know, because I'd love to work for you. Imagine if you could get that message to them. You can. It's actually extremely easy to do over things like LinkedIn. If you want to see how to do this specifically, check out a video that I've linked to in the description. It's a video on my channel. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. Okay, check out that video. Right? So think about it. All the people that apply for a job that says you have to have experience, and you don't have any experience, right? Let's say 500 people applied for that job. So they've got 500 job applications to go through, right? But at the same time, you want that job, but you didn't just apply. You reached out to that person. You said, hey, I'm here. I can do this, right? Or you said it another way. You said, hey, I'd very much like to get your expert opinion on this industry and where it's going, something like that. Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes of your time? Maybe we could grab a coffee or something. And they write back and they say, sure, I got 30 minutes, right? So you go down there and they meet you. They see that you're enthusiastic. They see that, you're presenting yourself very professionally. You have some charisma, right? You're asking them intelligent questions about their industry. They can tell that you know the subject matter and you know a bit about, doing this kind of work, right? And then you talk to each other. They mainly talk to you, and you like each other. At the end, the hiring manager enjoyed the interaction. You're asking them what they think about what they do. People love telling people that. It's flattering, right? When was the last time somebody contacted you and said, I would love to get your expert opinion on what you do. I find it fascinating. I'd love to be able to pick your brain about this industry and the work you do. I'd love to learn from you. Would that be okay? Can I talk to you for half an hour? How often do you get that? Probably not very often. When you get it, it feels very flattering. You think like, wow, somebody looks up to me and they care about what I think about the stuff I do. That's very flattering. Sure, I'll answer your questions. So you come down and talk to them like that, and they think like, wow, this person's awesome. This person is genuinely interested in the stuff I do, and I am having a great time talking to them, right? Now, if they got to hire someone for the job, who are they going to pick? They're going to pick a total stranger that could have obfuscated their entire resume? Or are they going to pick the person that they just met, that they enjoyed getting the conversation with, that they had an interaction that went very, very well, that they saw was professional, had great communication skills, had a lot of charisma, and signaled that they were genuinely interested because they reached out without knowing that there's a job. They just reached out to me to pick my brain about something. You know, you're going to be first in line for that job if they're hiring. You know, that's one way of how you get around that requirement, right? You make up for it with other things. Oh, sure, other people have experience, but how many of them showed up? 0. Only you. Only you cared enough and showed genuine enthusiasm to go down and meet with them or to reach out directly to them. Okay, these are some of the things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. Watch that video, okay? It's called How to Get a Job with No Experience, and it's on my channel. So do a search for that. Hopefully that makes sense. But a great question. He-Man says, got it. Thanks for the information. It all made sense. Okay, good. J Products says, would it be worth it if you, despite being really knowledgeable, decided to stay even if they don't give you the raise just to acquire more experience and finish studies related to your industry? I can't answer whether it would be worth it. That depends on your goals and your situation, and I know neither. So you have to decide that for yourself. It's conceivable. It might make sense to do that. There's nothing wrong with that in itself, but it may not. So you need to decide for yourself. And depending on what your goals are, you could be in the exact same situation and different courses of action would make sense, right? You know, like if you're finishing studies related to something, it makes sense to stay in one place. That like I can see the logic in that. You stay in one place while you complete the study, you know? But I mean, it depends on the details, right? If they're paying you absolute peanuts and it turns out you could continue your studies across the city in a place paying you 3 times as much, you know, and it only took like 1 week of disruptive transition, maybe it would make sense to do that. So it really depends on the details. Somebody says networking is really very important to this game. That's one of the reasons I got the job today. Yeah, like the vast majority of people, when you ask them, like, how did you get this job that you're doing now? Most of them, well over 50%, are going to say some form of networking. They're not going to say, I applied for an online job through an online job posting where I knew nobody at the company. And I went in, I submitted my resume, I talked to a recruiter, and I got hired that way, right? Most people are going to say some form of networking. Either I knew someone at the company or there was a previous coworker of mine that, you know, I'd worked together before. They ended up working here and I reached out to them and they said, oh, we're actually hiring where I work. Are you interested? Something like that. You know, like you may know family members, you know, that like in your family, the odds are is that in your family, you know, how did other family members get the job they're working in now? It's most likely it's some form of networking. You know, they knew someone or, you know, they were given a chance because they knew someone. They weren't hired because they knew someone. They were given a chance because they knew someone, but they were hired on their own merits, right? They were hired because they were qualified, but they were given the chance before, you know, strangers were, right? Because someone that they knew in the company said, you know, you guys know that I'm good. I've been working here 10 years. I vouch for this person. I'm telling you, this person's good. You should check them out, right? So based on something like that, they gave you a chance and you were hired when they saw that you were fully qualified and you had everything that they were looking for. You know, that's usually how this stuff works. So if you're not having a lot of success applying for jobs in the posted job market, learn about networking, learn about the hidden job market where the other 80% of the jobs are, and you can get those. Those also tend to be the desirable jobs, the ones they don't have any problems filling, you know? Like, let me ask you guys something. Let me ask you like a hypothetical question. See if this makes sense to you. If you were a recruiter, okay, if you were like, a boss in a company that needed to hire another person for their team, right? Why would that person choose to sort through 1,000 resumes of strangers to do this? Like, is that the best way you can think of hiring someone? Now, why would someone choose to do that? Well, you might be thinking like, okay, you look at 1,000 people and you try and find the best one, right? The irony, of course, is that recruiters are not trying to find the best candidate. They never were. That's not their goal. They're trying to find the least risky candidate. Those are two different things, right? They're not looking for like, we're going to try and find the best person we can get. They look beyond really good people to get safe people, right? So if you're not even ending up with the best candidate by doing this extremely labor-intensive process of like looking at 1,000 candidates, side to side and trying to sift through all that, and then bring in these people for interviews because you don't know any of them, doing background checks because you don't know these people. They could be criminals, they could be crazy. You have no idea, right? Does this sound like the best way to fill that position? Of course not. The best way to fill a position is if you happen to know someone, right? Maybe you're the boss. It's someone on your team that also works for the company. They report to you, right? And you trust them because they've been your employee for 5 years. You know they're not crazy. You know they're not a criminal. That you know that you work really well together and they know their stuff, right? And they're in your office in front of you telling you, saying, I know someone who I used to work with that I can vouch for. They're a very good employee. They'd be really good for this vacancy you have. You should try them, right? And you say to them, okay, tell them to come in for an interview, like, I don't know, on Thursday. Does that work? Tell them to come in on Thursday. Yeah, sure. You tell me to send their resume to me and bring them in on Thursday. Can you do that? They say, sure, yeah, I can do that. Right? Isn't that, first of all, that's so much more labor saving measure, it's so much easier to do. There aren't other people involved. There aren't recruiters. There aren't filtering of thousands of resumes and stuff like this. You're avoiding all of that, right? And the person you're getting has a personal recommendation from someone you do trust, where they're risking their reputation if this person they recommend ends up being a dud, right? Turns out that they were crazy and they couldn't do any of the things they said they could do, You're never going to trust that person again in the company, and that's probably shot down any chance that person might have of being promoted within your company if they do something like that, right? So, you know what I mean? On the other hand, the likelihood of this candidate working out goes up very high because someone that you know and trust and work with every day for 5 years is saying, this person is good, trust me, right? Would you ignore that and go with a stranger instead? Especially when recruiters are known for not even looking for the best candidate. They're looking for the safest candidate, which is something else entirely. You're not even getting the best candidate, So if that seems fishy to you, you're absolutely right in thinking that, right? What's going on is that when they want to fill a position, in the vast majority of situations, they first do the networking thing. Do we know anyone that could do this? Those are the people that have first dibs on a lot of jobs, right? And it's very easy for you to come in and be that first person, okay? You don't have to have a personal relationship with somebody that works there. You have to have reached out to the company directly, right? When there's no job on the horizon. That's easy to do. You can be that first person, right? So they look there first. Then if they can't find anyone, nobody knows anyone that could do this, right? You can't recommend me anyone that would do this and they're qualified and they're available. That's when we put it out to a public canvas and we start sifting through strangers that we don't know. It's a lot high risk. These people could be crazy. They could be criminals. We don't know. We're going to try and do our due diligence without really putting a lot of money into this process, which hamstrings it. That's what's going on. So where would you rather compete? Would you rather be one of the 1,000 people going through the front door trying to outcompete 1,000 other candidates to be the one that stands out? Or would you be the one that reaches out to the company, that gets the attention of the hiring manager, that shows their enthusiasm and shows their professionalism and communication skills and, ability to persuade, and they show how awesome they are by talking shop with the hiring manager? The hiring manager sees like, oh, you actually know your stuff, and I like dealing with you. That makes you a contender to get in when the job hasn't been posted yet. It's still in the hidden phase, right? That's how this stuff works. Hopefully that makes sense. Knowing this, it kind of then informs you of like what to do, what to go about doing, right? Chili says, hello, I have a genuine question. I am shooting in my own knee by adding languages to my resume. What can give away my nationality? Shall I remove it? That's unanswerable, Chili. I don't know what nationality you are. I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know what your situation is. Sorry. I wish you the best of luck. Maybe talk to someone who's been in that exact position before. Which, sorry, unfortunately isn't me. Internet Vibe says, how does a recruiter pick out a candidate to interview? That's an interesting question. Sometimes they just roll a dice. Other times, there's a little bit more thought put into it. Sometimes they don't put any thought into it. It's just an AI selection from an ATS software that has automatically read all the all the resumes that have been submitted. And then it recommends, like, you should bring in these candidates in this order. This is how we would rank them. So how many do you want to interview? Here's 10 in order of suitability according to the ATS system. So if you want to interview 5, bring in the top 5, right? Recruiters famously don't know much, if anything, about the jobs that they're hiring for. They are trained in HR. They went to school to learn about HR. HR talks about labor laws. It talks about compensation strategy. It talks about recruitment and selection theory. It talks about all these different things. But if you're hiring for an accountant position, the one thing a recruiter doesn't know is they don't know anything about accounting. But yet they're in a position where they're trying to decide this candidate would make a better accountant than that candidate. It's stupid, right? So usually it's really the hiring manager that has to make a judgment call, right? The hiring manager would be is the boss. They would, in this case, they would be like the head of the accounting department. And they've said, I need to hire an accountant in my department, right? So they might be able to talk shop. They can talk accounting with the candidates, right? But the recruiter doesn't know anything about accounting. All the recruiter knows is that the hiring manager has said they want someone with 5 years experience as an accountant. And the recruiter's job is to go out and find qualified candidates. So they go out and they get a bunch of candidates, and either by having the candidates apply and it comes to them, or they actively go out and look for people that have these skills and contact them. The recruiter contacts the candidate and says, we might have a job here that you seem to be suited for. Are you interested in coming in and interviewing it, right? And all the recruiter knows is that on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile or whatever, it says you've got 10 years of accounting experience. So it seems like you'd be qualified for this, right? So there's many different ways. It's not one simple answer. There's many different techniques, but those are only for posted jobs where you've got a recruiter involved. A lot of jobs, they don't have a recruiter involved. Anything on the hidden job market, there's no recruiter involved. The recruiter comes in as a clerk to fill in the paperwork once they've decided who they're going to hire, right? Once the hiring manager's decided that. Chili says, it's better not to add a picture on a job profile websites. I have nothing to hide, but I feel this may be the factor of rejection. Chili says, I'm from Poland, working in the UK for 10 years for a law firm, looking now to change. I tailor my CV according to my vacancies. I always add cover letters. Seems like I don't get any interviews. Okay, So here's your first question, Chili. Should you put a picture or not? Okay. Now, the jury's out on that one. Some people say you should, other people say you shouldn't. Personally, I think it's good. That's just my personal opinion, okay? I used to do that. I would have a resume, and what I did is I not only put my picture on it, but I put the logos of the companies I worked with because they were recognizable. They were like blue chip companies and stuff. And I got recruiters giving me a lot of flack for that said, get rid of all this. But I've been interviewed for a job by one billionaire in my life, and he said it was awesome. He said he really liked how it was symmetrical and how I had that stuff on there. It made it interesting to look at. So go figure, I mean, everybody's got an opinion about it. Here's what I would say. If you've got a picture on there, try it for a while. Now, if you say you're not getting any interviews, remove the picture and apply for a bunch more stuff and see if that changes. If all of a sudden you start getting interviews, then you can conclude it might have had something to do with the picture, right? Okay, that's all I'll say. It's by probing the market. It's by trying these things and seeing if the results change, right? But do a careful, controlled kind of thing, right? If you've tried it for a while with a picture, try it without a picture, okay? Now, you're asking about a situation that's very specific. You're saying you're from Poland, you're in the UK, you're working in a law firm. Should I do this? Okay? Here's what I would say. Okay, you can get an answer for this exact question and many other technical questions like this in about 5 minutes on LinkedIn. Okay? Here's what you do. Okay? Do a search for people in the role that you want. Okay? So let's pretend that you're applying for the job of paralegal. Let's say that's the job description. That's the job you're going for, okay? Now do a search, a people search on LinkedIn for the word paralegal, right? And confine it to geographically to your hometown or wherever you're looking for a job, okay? And it's a people search. So the results are going to be individuals. And the results are going to be individuals that either are currently working in the role of paralegal or in the past, they've been in the role of paralegal, right? That's usually what the results are going to be if you do a people search for the term paralegal, right? So, of all the people that are right now employed as a paralegal, look at their profiles, okay? Do you notice anything in common? Do they all have the same experience? Do they all have the same certifications? Do they all have whatever it was you were asking about here, looking to tailor my CV? Like whatever question you have about, what do I need to do? What do I need to show, right? That can give you an answer. If they all have a certain certification that you don't have, maybe you should get that certification. If none of them have that certification, or half of them do and half of them don't, that tends to suggest that certification is not absolutely required. You see what I'm saying? So by looking at people that are in that role, you can glean a lot of information about what you're going to need to have to be considered qualified for that role and to be considered a contender. Okay? Now, if your question is like, okay, how do I tailor my resume? How do I include a cover letter? What do I say? Maybe now that you've found all these people in the role of paralegal, maybe contact them through LinkedIn, because LinkedIn doesn't just provide you the ability to find people. It also allows you to reach out to those people. You could send them emails, you could send them connection requests. There's like a whole bunch of things you can do, right? Maybe just looking at their profile, they put their email address on there. I don't know. So contact some of these people. Say, hey, look, listen, I understand you're a paralegal in this city, in like, I don't know, Leeds or wherever you are, London. And, I just had a couple of quick questions about, working as a paralegal in Leeds. Would it be possible to have a quick phone call with you where I could ask you just some questions? I'm trying to get hired as a paralegal, and I just had some questions about the nature of the work. Would it be okay if we had a quick call? Something like that. And while they're on the phone with you, like most people won't respond, but some people will. So you'll get some people saying, sure, So call them up and then ask them these questions. Say like, when you got the job, did you have to do a fancy cover letter, or did you have to show this or show that, or, like what are people looking for? What's important, that people would want to see, and get that information straight from the people that have done it, and any technical question like that you might have that's specific to your industry or your location, this is how you get answers for it. Hopefully that makes sense. International Vibe says, can one get the job offer just by the recruiter's interview? Yes, that does happen. As opposed to what? As opposed to like talking to the hiring manager, you mean? Listen, in this world, we see everything happen some of the time, right? So for example, if you want a job, you go to a construction site, you talk to the foreman for like 30 seconds. You're like, hey, I can do this. I'm qualified. Are you needing any help? They say, sure. Okay, suit up. You've got this insurance. You've got this Okay, fine. Sign up there. Report to him. He's the shift leader. Whatever. There you go. You just got hired. Like we see some of everything happen. So certainly some people can get hired in one interview where you just interview with just the recruiter, and they can tell you right there or then you're hired. That does happen. Chili, you're welcome. And if your picture is professional, it seems to me like you'd want it on there. But then again, the results speak for themselves. So if you suspect it might be a factor that why you're not getting any bites, try some applications without it just to see, like what the results are, right? I'm looking for a position as team leader or manager, legal support teams. Good shout. Thank you. I appreciate your time answering the question. No problem at all, Chili. I wish you the absolute best of luck. And I love the UK. I've been to the UK many, many, many times. My family way back is from the UK. And I was in London last year for a while, and wonderful place to visit. I don't know if I want to live there, but amazing place to visit. So a lot of good stuff there. Internet Vibe says, yeah, just the recruiter, no manager. Yeah, that happens a lot. Usually it's like a screening, kind of like opening round where you just talk to the interviewer. For a lot of career jobs, usually the hiring manager will want to see you before, the final decision is made. They'll want to just have final approval. So the way that works is if you do one interview with just the recruiter, usually it means that you'll do a second interview with the final 3 candidates where the hiring manager is there, and the hiring manager just says, yeah, I agree, that person looks good, And that's more typical, right? But for some entry-level jobs and lower-level jobs, yeah, they can just do it with a recruiter, one interview, and that's it, you're hired. Yeah, like usually the boss will want to see you, like I said. I'm sure that, we'll see out there's cases where like the boss just says to a recruiter, go hire someone. And, I'll meet them when they start. I'm sure that does happen. Like for jobs that they hire a lot of people at once for like, a manual labor type thing, that's much more common, where I don't need to vet the people. I trust you. If you pick totally unsuitable people, I'm not hiring you again, or I'm not working with you again, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the incentive for them to pick the right person, in which case the boss would say, I don't need to be involved. You take care of it. I'll see them when they start. And if there's any problems, we'll deal with it from there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We've gotten to the end of the chat. I see there's 32 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. I wish you all the best in your job search endeavors. And if this process is getting you down, like this world of job search, trust me, I get it. It's not fun to be between jobs. It's not fun to be dealing with recruiters of all people. They're some of the rudest, most unprofessional people I've ever dealt with in my career. Especially like years ago when I was sort of a junior level person, and you're between jobs and you got to deal with these clowns, and like they're disrespectful, they're incompetent. Nobody's calling them on it because everybody has to come cap in hand to them for a job. So, they can be useless, they can be disrespectful and rude, and no one ever calls them on it. I remember finding that very frustrating. So if that's you, my heart goes out to you. I sympathize. It's not a fun situation. But the good news is that it's temporary. Might not feel like it, but it is. You're not hired until you are, and then it's a whole new thing, right? And you forget the place that you're in now, So hopefully you get to that as soon as possible. And if you do have any questions about the details, I'm here to answer questions. I do live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some of my streams are about other things, like about entrepreneurship and about private equity and stuff, but I talk about this stuff on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Usually in this live stream, Honest HR Nitrous. And if you want to go deeper with my stuff, maybe you've seen a few of my YouTube videos, you want to go deeper with me, check out that course. That's where all the learning is. If you want to learn the networking stuff, it's very hard for me to explain it like a bit at a time in live streams like this, because there's so many principles and you can't cover it all. And unless you cover it all, you're leaving out details and people misunderstand the details and then it doesn't make sense. So if you're looking to get all my knowledge all in one place and do the whole shebang, check out that course. There's a link in the description. I've also made videos that describe my courses, so it's as transparent as possible. You can see what you're getting before you pull the trigger on it. You understand how it works. That's to get hired if you're between jobs. That's to improve your communication skills if you want to get promoted, maybe become a manager, maybe climb the ladder through management. I was a CEO, so all the stuff I had to learn is basically I put in there when it comes to communication skills. And if you just want to learn business, either you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to manage money or you want to manage people or whatever it is that you're looking to learn, okay, check this out. This is a course I did called the $100 MBA, and it teaches you everything that you would learn in an MBA program, which is a big boast, but I can do that because it's a self-study program. And basically you're reading textbooks, the same textbooks they use in places like Harvard Business School in their MBA program, and I made videos to guide you through it. I have an MBA myself. I've been a CEO. So if you really want to learn business, there's a lot of things that you can get out of it. Everybody needs money, and business is the scientific study of how to make money. So knowing it can be pretty useful. And this is the best bang for the buck you're going to get anywhere. $100 to get access to the same knowledge that you would learn in a 2-year university program that can cost you 5 figures. It angers me why they charge so much for this. It's ridiculous, especially if you realize, like I do, that the vast majority of the knowledge is in the public domain. You could buy the books on Amazon. You could learn the material. It's just a question of what to learn. So that's what that course is. If you're interested in that, links in the description box. I will be back in 2 days on Friday with another edition of Honest HR Nitrous. So if you have more questions, feel free to come back and we can get into it then. Thanks so much. Best of luck, you guys. We'll see you soon.